Your money's not here. Leave! Margaret Wells didn't raise her voice. She aimed it like a blade. The branch manager of Peachtree Bank stood with both hands pressed on the edge of the counter. Her eyes narrowed at the woman in front of her. This ID? Fake? Your account? Flagged. I don't know what you're trying to pull, but you're done here. Lydia Morgan, standing tall in a gray fitted suit with the calmness of a woman who'd lived through storms far worse, held her ground. Around her, customers began to murmur. Some snorted with amusement. Others took out phones, hoping for a viral moment. One man, a white client in a dark blue blazer with a silk pocket square, smirked and leaned toward another, whispering, "She's scamming us. Look at her. $500,000? Please." Lydia said nothing at first. She only tilted her head, then placed her phone flat on the marble counter and tapped the screen. "You're being recorded," she said evenly. "For your sake. I hope every word is accurate." She wasn't there to play defense. She was there to withdraw $500,000 from a business account that had more than 10 times that amount, an account under her name, built over decades of unflinching work. But Peachtree Bank wasn't ready for Lydia Morgan. Where are you watching from today? If this story speaks to you, hit subscribe. And if you've faced something like this, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters. Ethan Brooks, a mid-level teller with a permanent sneer etched across his face, scanned her ID again, then glanced at his monitor. "Nope," he said loud enough for the line behind Lydia to hear. "Account flagged as suspicious. You won't be getting a cent. Ma'am." He stretched the word ma'am like it was a joke. Claire Ramsey, the loan officer leaning against her desk nearby, didn't bother hiding her disdain. "Isn't this the third one this week?" she asked, though no one had said anything to her. "They come in thinking they own the place." Lydia's brow remained still, but her eyes locked on Margaret. "If I walk out of here," she said, "it won't be empty-handed. It'll be with your branch in my portfolio." Margaret laughed. "Lady, you're digging your own grave." Without waiting, she clicked into the FIS Horizon system and locked Lydia's profile, labeling it unverified. The screen flashed red. Ethan turned toward Claire. "She's locked out," he said. Claire clapped slowly, like it was a show. "Next time she'll think twice before faking a corporate account." Lydia didn't flinch. Her hand tightened on her phone, her voice low. "You're all leaving a digital footprint you won't recover from." Howard Vance, the wealthy client in the blue blazer, stepped closer, uninvited. "This bank's for real clients," he said to no one in particular. "People with portfolios, not whatever this is." He gestured vaguely toward Lydia with a lazy wave of his hand. Ethan added with a grin, "Her account's frozen, probably because it's fraudulent." A young woman near the back of the line whispered, "Is this for real?" Another chimed in, "They said she's stealing?" Lydia spoke clearly, her voice cutting through the noise. "Every word you speak is being documented. Say what you mean, out loud." Claire folded her arms. "She's no CEO. Trust me." Margaret nodded in agreement. "She's a security risk." Her fingers danced below the counter, triggering the silent alarm. In the back, someone muttered, "She's a thief." Howard pointed at the camera above the ATM. "Hope that's on. This'll be a good one." Lydia didn't blink. "You'll regret this," she said. Not a threat, not a wish. A promise. Behind Lydia. The weight of these moments pressed forward through memory. Margaret's accusations echoed years of resistance, barriers Lydia had broken through with intellect, grace, and relentless resolve. She hadn't just founded Vanguard Solutions. She'd architected it into one of the most respected fintech giants in the country. The very anti-money laundering software this Peachtree Bank branch used. licensed from her company. She'd testified before congressional panels, consulted on national financial equity policies, and now stood at a counter, once again forced to justify her worth to people with no idea whose shadow they stood in. They didn't know she'd seen this script before, and rewritten it. To Lydia's right, Talia Hayes, her chief financial officer and longtime friend, stood quietly, her thumbs moving across her phone. A Vanguard compliance alert was already on the way. She made no scene, no sound, just precision in action. Across the lobby, Maya Jordan, a 35-year-old mother waiting to deposit a check, instinctively hit record on her phone. Just in case, she whispered to herself. She didn't know who Lydia was, but something felt off, and she'd seen enough on the news to know how these things unfold. Behind the teller line, Noah Ellis, one of the newer staffers, watched with unease. Unlike the others, he recognized Lydia. He'd read about her last month, Forbes, Business Journal, even on LinkedIn. He looked over at Ethan and Claire, then back to Lydia. His hand moved subtly toward his phone. Officer Ryan Carter, from the Atlanta Police Department, was already en route. Called by Margaret 30 seconds ago. Then, as the murmurs built into chatter and the lobby thickened with tension, Lydia calmly stepped back from the counter and opened her phone. She dialed a number without flinching. "Walter," she said into the speaker. "It's Lydia Morgan. You need to check your manager's record. Now." There was a pause, a distant sound of surprise, then shuffling papers. "Lydia?" came the startled voice of Walter Grant, CEO of Peachtree Bank. "What's going on?" Lydia didn't answer directly. "Start with her history," she said. "3 bias complaints, right?" A silence, then a resigned sigh. "Yes, we were reviewing internally." "You just did," Lydia replied. Beside her, Talia held up her phone. "She just locked your profile," she said softly. "I accessed their Slack. There's chatter. Claire joked about low-tier clients last week. I saved the thread." At the same time, Maya posted her video to X and Instagram. "This happened at Peachtree Bank today," she captioned it. In under a minute. It hit 5,000 views. Notifications pinged around the lobby like popcorn. Customers looked down at their phones, then up at Lydia. Some began whispering, others widened their eyes. One man slowly lowered his phone camera, unsure what he'd just captured. Lydia turned back to Margaret and said clearly, "Your time's up." What started as whispers had turned to buzz. Lydia hadn't raised her voice. She didn't need to. The lobby had shifted. Peachtree Bank's staff had drawn a line, one they didn't realize was already beneath her feet. And in exactly 7 minutes, they would find out who had been standing on whose turf. "Fraud alert at the counter," Margaret shouted, her voice now shrill with manufactured urgency. "I repeat, we've got a fraud in progress." Her words pierced the lobby, drawing startled gasps and confused stares. Claire didn't miss a beat. She turned to the waiting customers, theatrically clutching a manila folder. "She's hacking our system," she said, loud and unbothered. "She's crashing transactions." Maya, still recording from the line, instinctively zoomed in on Claire's face. "They're panicking," she whispered into her phone's mic. "I think they just realized who they're messing with." Just then, Howard Vance shouldered his way forward, brushing Lydia aside. "Move!" he barked. "You're endangering this institution." His face reddened with performative outrage. "You want your moment? You got it, but not in this bank." Lydia didn't move. She simply turned to Noah Ellis, still behind the counter, watching the performance with growing disbelief. "Do you see what they're doing?" she asked. Noah nodded. "Yeah," he said under his breath. "And it's wrong." Claire caught the exchange and spat back. "Stay in your lane. Ellis, You don't want to get dragged down with her. Dragged down with who? Exactly, Lydia replied, her voice even. Because in a moment, none of you will be standing. Customers murmured. Some looked toward the front entrance, where the double-glass doors had just automatically locked shut. Emergency lockdown. Margaret had triggered it from her dashboard. Ethan's fingers danced across his keyboard again, and with one final keystroke, he muttered, "Restricted." He leaned back with smug satisfaction. "You're done." Claire leaned in toward Margaret. "She doesn't belong here. I told you." Margaret nodded and grabbed the landline. "I'm escalating this," she said into the receiver. "This is theft. We need immediate police presence." Lydia tapped her phone again, voice calm but icy. "Officer Carter's already en route," she said, "and he'll have everything on record." From the line, someone yelled. "Why hasn't she been escorted out?" another shouted. "This is ridiculous." The chant began faintly but quickly built momentum. "Kick her out! Kick her out!" Claire raised both arms like a conductor and added, "This is for real clients, not disruptors." Lydia stayed still, centered. "Keep watching," she said, barely above a whisper. "This is all being captured." Maya panned her phone to catch the screens above the teller line. The transaction system had frozen. Keyboards stalled. The FIS Horizon interface, the same one Lydia's company built its regulatory compliance layer upon, blinked an error message. Claire glanced up. "Did she really crash the system?" she hissed. Margaret's face paled. "This is going viral," a customer muttered, glancing at his phone. "I just saw this woman on my feed. She's trending." At the same moment, Lydia's voice carried again, this time with a firm clarity. "The system crashed because it's built on bias," she said. "And the moment you labeled me suspicious, it triggered a fail-safe." Margaret froze. "That's not true." But her voice had lost its edge. In the corner, Noah's phone buzzed again. He stepped away from the counter and opened Slack. He scrolled through messages from earlier that week. Ones Claire had posted carelessly. He found one marked with the timestamp. Monday, 2:13 p.m. It read, "Flag high-dollar withdrawals from clients who don't fit the elite profile. You know what I mean?" He did. Everyone did. Noah took a screenshot, then opened a group thread labeled Compliance Vanguard. He forwarded the message and added a caption, "Confirmed, from Claire." He looked up and met Talia's eyes across the lobby. She nodded. Seconds later, a buzz hit her phone. She read the message, looked at Lydia, and whispered, "We got it." Lydia didn't smile, but she gave the smallest nod. "Now show them," she said. Maya's phone vibrated again. She pulled up the latest version of her earlier post, now sitting at over 2,000 views. She added a video of Margaret calling Lydia a fraud and attached the Slack screenshot with Claire's directive. The caption now read, "Unbelievable at Peachtree. They said this black woman didn't fit the profile to withdraw her own money." She hit post. Within seconds, the comment thread exploded. Verified accounts began resharing. One comment read, "This is what systemic discrimination looks like. Live." Another added, "Tag DOJ, tag CFPB. This isn't just a mistake. It's a pattern." And then the branch lobby pinged with the unmistakable buzz of notification chimes erupting across customers' phones. The walkout began almost instantly. Customers nearest the front turned on their heels and headed toward the doors, finding them locked. Several banged on the glass until a teller finally hit the override. One woman pushed past a stunned Claire, saying, "This is disgusting. I'm moving my money," a man with a tablet whispered. "This is about to tank their stock." Another customer live-streamed from the lobby as he walked out. "This just happened to a CEO. Y'all, imagine what they'd do to us." Within minutes, a third of the waiting clients had exited the building. The lobby, once echoing with ridicule, was now thick with tension. Claire hissed at Maya, "Stop filming, now!" But it was too late. Noah, emboldened, leaned toward Ethan and asked quietly, "You really thought she wouldn't fight back?" Ethan scoffed. "She's not the first. She won't be the last." But he glanced at his screen again, unease beginning to settle on his monitor. The teller interface blinked with a strange message he hadn't seen before. "Flag non-elite clients, protocol active." His brow furrowed. "What is this?" he muttered. But before he could react, Maya's phone lit up again. She raised it toward the screen, caught the phrase, and whispered, "Got it." She posted the clip instantly, a video showing the phrase, "flagged non-elite clients," overlaid with Claire's Slack message. Her new caption read, "Peachtree's secret policy, caught on camera." The clip surged. In 5 minutes, it broke 5,000 views. Maya's name trended. Financial journalists began messaging her directly. X's front page read, "Bias protocol found in Atlanta bank." One thread showed a timeline of Claire's Slack comments, matching phrases to Peachtree's client rejection patterns. In the corner, Margaret slammed a drawer shut and yelled, "That's fake. That's edited." But no one was listening to her anymore. A nearby teller turned his screen to the wall. Ethan frantically pressed keys, but the system began to gray out. One by one, functions were being disabled. Lydia took a deep breath, still standing where she began, centered, composed. "This is how the system protects itself," she said. "Until someone holds up a mirror," Maya whispered to her live stream. "You're looking at the mirror now." Outside, a black SUV pulled up quietly to the curb. Inside sat a man in a tailored gray suit with a phone to his ear. Walter Grant, CEO of Peachtree Bank, watching Lydia Morgan's name trend nationally. His voice was thin as he whispered to his assistant, "Find out everything. I don't care what it costs." Inside the lobby, Margaret's hands shook as she pressed the phone back into its cradle. Claire was pacing. Ethan was sweating. And Howard, for the first time since Lydia walked in, said nothing. He stood motionless, scrolling through Maya's post. "They exposed us," he muttered. "They actually did it." Lydia glanced down at her phone. Talia's message had just arrived. It said only 3 words. "It's spreading fast," Lydia whispered back. "Then it's time." Sirens split the stale air as blue and red lights painted the bank's front windows. Officer Ryan Carter pushed through the glass doors just as they reopened, scanning the tense lobby with the trained focus of a man used to walking into fire. Phones were up, cameras rolling. The air buzzed not just with static from police radios, but with the electric crackle of accountability. Margaret didn't hesitate. She stepped forward and pointed at Lydia, her voice rising above the murmurs. "That's her," she barked. "She's stealing millions. She faked credentials. She crashed our system." Ryan turned his head slowly, studying Lydia, then glanced down at his phone. Notifications flashed across the screen. Posts from Maya, trending hashtags. Lydia's name now paired with words like hashtag bias banking and hashtag Peachtree truth. Ethan, seeing the officer hesitate, lunged forward and slapped Lydia's ID onto the counter. "Fake CEO," he said smugly. "Just a scammer who talks big." Claire, from the corner, added, "We wiped her account. She's got nothing left." A few customers actually clapped. Howard's booming voice added fuel. "She thought she could walk in and play millionaire. She played herself." Lydia didn't move. She brushed the ID back into her wallet and replied, "Your job's ended the minute that video hit 500K. She turned her eyes to Ryan. "Officer, I suggest you watch it." The room shifted again. Some customers looked embarrassed. Others squinted at their screens. Ethan still didn't get it. He tapped his terminal aggressively, then smiled. Profile locked. He muttered, "You're nobody now." Claire called out to Margaret. "We still detaining her?" Margaret nodded confidently. "Absolutely." She pulled her phone and texted, "Suspect detained. Proceed." A customer across the lobby pointed at Lydia and yelled, "Get her out! We don't want criminals here!" Maya caught it all on video, including the woman's flushed, angry face and the shaking finger. Lydia turned to the shouting customer and said gently, "You don't even know my name, but I know all of yours will be remembered for this." Behind her, Howard barked, "You're a disgrace!" Claire laughed. "She's out of her league." Ethan, emboldened by the noise, pressed a button and smirked. "Cards blocked. She's got nothing." Lydia didn't raise her voice. "You just gave me everything I need." The moment was familiar. Too familiar. Years ago. A senior executive had tossed her resume back across the table, saying she wasn't what they were looking for. That same man had ended up working under her after Vanguard acquired his company 2 years later. Ethan's flick of her ID echoed that same arrogance, the smug certainty that power couldn't wear her face, and here they were again, trying to erase her. But this time, she wasn't alone, and this time, she'd come with tools. She turned and handed Maya a sleek silver USB drive. "You've got reach," Lydia said softly. "Post this." Maya took it without a word. As she turned back to her phone, Ethan snatched the drive from her hand and flung it toward the trash can. "You don't get to upload lies," he snapped. Maya gasped. Talia stepped forward then, quiet but firm. "He just deleted federal evidence," she said, typing into her device. Seconds later, the feed from the bank's internal security system began rerouting through Vanguard's remote network. Talia, watching the lines of code pour in, said, "We've got backup. He can't stop the truth." Maya retrieved a second copy from her bag and posted the footage. They destroyed the first copy, but not this one. On screen after screen, a new video emerged. Security footage of Ethan locking the account, Claire's chat messages, Margaret's finger pressing the alarm button, and then it hit. The algorithm. Talia, working quickly from her tablet, had accessed Peachtree's anti-money laundering module, the one Vanguard had quietly overhauled for the bank last year. What she uncovered in real time made Lydia go still. A hidden subroutine, buried beneath user-facing settings, set to flag clients with high withdrawal requests if demographic indicators did not match elite criteria. Translated, black and brown clients asking for large sums were automatically routed through red flag protocols, the same software Vanguard had built, with custom modifications requested specifically by Peachtree's internal IT. The code scrolled across the bank lobby monitors. Talia, her voice low but unshakable, said, "It's not just bias, it's programmed." Maya's camera caught the lines of code glowing on the screen and captioned the video. "Peachtree's secret algorithm exposed live." Within 90 seconds, the video hit 1 million views. Major media outlets began embedding it. Calls flooded Peachtree's headquarters. The bank's stock, already shaken, dropped another 11%, then 18%. Peachtree's name trended beneath hashtag #disbandbias and hashtag Lydia Morgan. Inside the lobby, Margaret's phone buzzed relentlessly. Her fingers hovered over the screen, frozen in place. Claire stared at the monitors in disbelief. "Turn them off!" she screamed. "Cut the screens!" But the control panel wouldn't respond. The system had already been rerouted. Lydia turned to face them all. "This isn't a viral moment," she said, eyes calm. "This is a reckoning." Howard backed toward the door. "She's bluffing," he mumbled, but even he didn't believe it. Ethan stared at his terminal, frozen, He tapped it once more. Nothing. Claire tried to pull her Slack window closed. Too late. Every message she'd ever written was being archived. Maya's phone buzzed again. A new message from an anonymous source. "I'm in Peachtree's corporate office. They're melting down. DOJ just sent notice. Tell her to move now." She handed it to Lydia. Lydia scanned the message, turned to Talia, and said one word: "Bye." At Peachtree Bank's corporate headquarters, nearly 15 miles from the chaos unfolding in the lobby. The top floor was a war room. Rows of monitors flashed in stuttering reds and urgent yellows. A group of senior executives huddled around a glass table, their suits sharp but their faces tight with panic. On the largest screen, Lydia Morgan's name appeared in bold next to the words, "Algorithm breach trending, DOJ alert issued." Walter Grant, CEO of Peachtree Bank, slammed his fist on the table. "Who let this get this far?" he barked. "Where is my communications director? Why the hell is there code flagging demographics in our AML protocol?" Silence. Then, slowly, one hand raised. Raina, head of compliance, pale with fear. "It was embedded last year," she said. "It insisted it was performance optimization, targeted risk thresholds." Walter snapped his gaze to her. "That code just cost us $800 million in valuation in 24 hours. Optimization?" He turned to his executive assistant. "Get legal on the line, now, and tell them." His phone buzzed violently. He looked down. A message from Talia Hayes. No words. Just a Vanguard Solutions letterhead and a subject line. Intent to purchase. Emergency acquisition offer. Margaret Wells, still inside the branch lobby, had no idea that upstairs. Her career had already gone up in smoke. She stood motionless, watching customers walk out one after another, many recording themselves saying, "I'm closing my account today," tagging Lydia Morgan and Peachtree in real time. Claire, red-faced and pacing, tried to block Maya's camera view. "She's a cyber criminal," she insisted. "We should sue her. Shut her out." Ethan crossed his arms, avoiding eye contact, silently praying that whatever was coming next would somehow miss him. But it wouldn't. At corporate. Walter's voice lowered, suddenly fragile. "What happens if we don't sell?" he asked the room. One of the financial advisors spoke gently. "With DOJ pressure and this level of media exposure, stock dives, lawsuits, potential shutdown." The room fell into hushed silence. Then another buzz, this time from a direct line to Vanguard's legal team. A new document. Purchase completed. Funds received. Everyone froze. Walter's mouth dropped slightly. "She already wired it?" Back in the branch, Lydia stepped away from the counter and walked toward the center of the lobby. Her heels echoed across the tile. The crowd parted. Officer Ryan Carter stayed still, one hand near his holster but the other loose. Uncertain now who the real authority was, Lydia turned to Maya and said quietly, "Keep filming." Maya nodded. Across the room, Talia's phone vibrated. She glanced down, opened the message, and locked eyes with Lydia. "Done," she said. "We own the building." Claire scoffed. "You bought... what? A share? This is a joke." But then the monitors, every single one inside the bank, flickered black. For a split second, the lobby dimmed. Then the Vanguard logo appeared across each screen. Beneath it, in soft white font, branch acquired, ownership transferred, effective immediately. Customers gasped, employees froze. Margaret's eyes widened, and for the first time since this began, her voice cracked. "No, no, this can't be real." Walter's voice came over the branch intercom a moment later, shaky, tired, defeated. "Effective immediately. This Peachtree branch is under Vanguard Solutions ownership and operation. All staff must comply with internal review. External counsel is being assigned." The line went dead. A sharp silence fell. Lydia turned to Claire. "You were saying?" Claire's mouth opened, but no sound came. Ethan looked visibly pale. He tried again to unlock the teller interface, but it had been disabled. "We're locked out," he whispered. "Everything's shut down." Margaret turned, bolted behind the teller line, and opened a secure drawer labeled Admin Override inside. A sleek black USB sat waiting. She jammed it into her terminal, fingers moving fast to erase history. Her screen flashed, "Authorized action required," but before she could finish, the screen split in two. On the left, her own actions in real time. On the right, a security camera feed recording her every keystroke. Maya stepped closer and zoomed in. "She's deleting files right now," she whispered into her live stream. "They're trying to hide what they did." The post uploaded instantly. Comments exploded. "Too late. We're watching you. Margaret." Lydia already owns the server. Talia stepped up beside Lydia. "Everything she deletes is being mirrored. This is Vanguard's ecosystem now." Margaret pulled the USB. Breathing hard, her voice broke into a whisper. "You can't do this. This was my branch." Lydia stepped closer, lowered her voice, and replied, "You made it your playground. That's over." From the back of the lobby, Noah Ellis stepped forward for the first time since the chaos erupted. He held up his phone, reading a message from Vanguard's HR portal. "We've been given a choice," he said to the staff. "Interview for re-evaluation or submit resignations now." Claire turned red. "This is a coup," Lydia corrected her gently. "No, this is called accountability." Outside the windows, reporters were gathering. A news van pulled up, its satellite dish rotating skyward. The scandal had left the internet. Now it was becoming a national headline. Lydia turned to Talia. "Notify our team in D.C. Tell the Fed we're ready to testify on discriminatory modeling. Send the data package." Talia nodded, already composing the message. Lydia then turned to Margaret, Claire, and Ethan. "Your digital footprints are permanent. Your names are on Slack threads, approval logs, audit trails. You did this to yourselves." And then, to no one in particular, Lydia said, "Lock the accounts." Talia tapped once. Peachtree's internal ledger froze mid-calculation. No withdrawals, no deposits, no fund transfers. "Control," Talia whispered. "Achieved." Margaret fell into the manager's chair like a woman aging 10 years in 10 minutes. Claire stood with her arms crossed, saying nothing now. Howard had vanished the moment the screens changed. But Lydia remembered. "He'll be addressed too," she said. "Every name, every moment." Maya's phone buzzed again. She glanced down and smiled. "Video's now at 3 million views. CNN's on the way." Lydia looked around the space where she'd been ridiculed. Now it was hers. The ceilings didn't look any taller. The walls hadn't moved. But everything had changed. She turned toward the customers still standing in the lobby, some filming, others just stunned. Her voice was steady and clear. "You witnessed what happens when arrogance meets truth. Now you'll witness what justice looks like in action." Outside, police lights danced across the sidewalk. Inside, the air had shifted completely. Margaret Wells, once so sure of her position behind the counter, sat slack in her office chair like a discarded puppet, hands trembling, mouth tight, eyes scanning every screen for a way to undo the last 7 minutes. But the lobby no longer belonged to her. It belonged to the woman she had tried to humiliate. Lydia Morgan stood with calm precision at the center of it all, framed not by rage or revenge, but by authority so undeniable it quieted the room. Phones were still up. Maya's stream was still rolling, and at that exact moment, Officer Ryan Carter stepped forward, not to detain Lydia, but to face Margaret. "I've reviewed the footage," he said, his voice deliberate. "You called in a false report. You escalated without cause. You triggered a lockdown on a verified client." He looked over at Lydia, then back to Margaret. "You placed this entire branch in jeopardy." Margaret scoffed. "You're taking her word?" Ryan turned the phone screen toward her. The video played back her voice. Crystal clear. "This ID? Fake. She's stealing millions." Then silence. Margaret slumped lower in her chair. A soft chime echoed from the monitors. A new message had appeared, this time from Vanguard HQ. Effective immediately. Margaret Wells, Ethan Brooks, Claire Ramsey, terminated. Security review complete. Assets frozen. Access revoked. Lydia didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply read the message aloud so every customer could hear it. The room gasped. Claire took a step back, as if someone had struck her. "This can't be legal," she murmured. "You can't fire people like this." "Correction," Lydia said calmly. "I can, because I own this place." Ethan looked at his screen, now grayed out, his logins rejected. "She's bluffing," he whispered, but he knew she wasn't. Walter Grant's voice came over the intercom once more, this time quieter, defeated. "In accordance with the sale, and upon review of conduct violations, those named have been dismissed. Do not resist exit protocols." Claire turned to Maya, pleading. "Turn that off. Please, I have a family." Maya didn't respond. She just kept filming. Ethan's hands curled into fists, but he said nothing. He stared at the floor. Howard Vance reappeared, pushing the door open just far enough to peek inside. His eyes darted toward Lydia, then around the room. "This some kind of corporate stunt?" he asked, voice raised. "You think you're the hero?" Lydia didn't move. "Mr. Vance," she said with chilling composure, "you've been banned from entering any Peachtree or Vanguard-affiliated property. Your accounts are under compliance hold pending investigation for harassment and bias-fueled conduct." A security guard from the adjoining hallway appeared. "Please escort Mr. Vance off the premises," Lydia instructed. Howard stiffened, his voice rising. "This is insane! I've banked here for 20 years!" Lydia turned toward him fully. "Then maybe you should have known how to behave inside it." The guard moved swiftly. Howard was gone. The screens darkened again, then glowed bright with a new headline. "Who is Lydia Morgan?" It wasn't from Maya this time. It was CNN. The story had broken through national news. The live stream picked it up. Lydia, now standing under those words, looked around the lobby. The world was about to catch up. Walter's voice crackled through the intercom again. "Who are you?" Lydia turned to the crowd, then stepped toward the counter where the humiliation had begun. Her voice was steady, unhurried. "My name is Lydia Morgan. I'm the founder and CEO of Vanguard Solutions, a multi-billion-dollar fintech company that develops equity-driven systems to protect underserved clients." She paused, letting the words land. "I advise the Federal Reserve on national banking equity and data ethics. My teams audit institutions across this country. And for the past 2 years, I've had contracts with Peachtree Bank." She turned to Maya's camera. "Including this branch." The room stilled. The silence wasn't fear. It was awe. A woman they tried to remove as an intruder now stood as their new owner, their judge, and their reckoning. Claire sat down hard on the edge of a desk. "This can't be real." Ethan leaned against the wall, sweating. Margaret barely lifted her head. I didn't know. She muttered, I didn't know who you were. Lydia turned toward her and said, But you didn't care either. That's the point. She paused, then addressed the room again. How many more people walked out of here today before me? People who didn't have a live stream, who didn't own a company, who couldn't defend themselves. Maya's camera lingered on her. That's who I'm here for. Not for revenge, for correction. Walter's voice returned, softer now, almost reverent. What do you want? Lydia looked toward the cameras. I want change, not just firings, reform. She turned to Ethan. You were the most aggressive, but you're young. You still have time to learn. I'm offering you retraining, on one condition. You admit what you did. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. I was wrong, he whispered. I followed Margaret's lead. I thought you were pretending. I didn't think it mattered. Lydia nodded. Then prove it matters now. Start over. The room was quiet again. Claire broke into tears. I never thought you'd be anyone important. She choked. Lydia replied gently. I've always been someone. You just chose not to see it. Then Maya posted again. Her caption, she wasn't just a customer. She was the architect of justice. The video surged to over 3 million views within minutes. Walter issued a formal statement. News anchors began arriving outside the branch. Interviews were requested. Talk shows picked it up. Hashtags multiplied. And through it all, Lydia remained rooted, steady, resolved. Her name would be known, but not because she demanded it, because she earned it. 2 weeks later, the Peachtree branch looked nothing like the place where Lydia had once stood humiliated. The Vanguard emblem now shimmered on the entrance doors, etched in silver over reinforced glass. Inside, the tellers wore nameplates with new titles: Client Equity Officer, Inclusion Supervisor, and mandatory bias response training badges clipped to every uniform. The paint was fresh, the lobby quieter, but beneath the cosmetic updates was a total transformation. Lydia's first executive order under the new ownership had been simple: never again. The branch became the pilot site for Vanguard Equity, a sweeping initiative that would be rolled out to over 400 financial institutions in the next year. It required real-time algorithm transparency, manual review of flagged transactions, and human oversight on every account freeze. The system that once flagged Lydia Morgan as a non-elite client had been dismantled, rewritten from its core. In its place was a new program Lydia and Talia had long been developing: ClearPath, an open ledger system tracking fairness indicators in live customer interactions. No more hidden subroutines, no more silent profiling. Every decision had a paper trail and an audit signature inside the branch. Those who remained carried themselves differently. Noah Ellis had been promoted to supervisor of client integrity, and for the first time in his life, he felt the title matched the weight of what he did. Maya Jordan now worked with Vanguard's external affairs team, helping to document and share stories from customers across the country. Talia led national trainings, her quiet strength shaping branch cultures from Atlanta to Oakland. And Ethan, once the smug voice that locked Lydia's account, sat in the training room 6 hours a day, learning from the very clients he once ignored. Lydia had spared him not out of sympathy, but out of belief in reform. Anyone can fall into a system, she told him, but you choose whether you stay there. Outside the branch, the reform spread faster than even Lydia predicted. Maya's live stream had been clipped by major networks, turned into a docu-series segment, and shared in Senate hearings. Members of Congress began asking questions. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau launched a formal investigation. The clip of the internal flagged non-elite clients algorithm was now Exhibit A in an upcoming regulation overhaul. Vanguard's platform downloads tripled in 2 weeks. X and Instagram feeds filled with tagged posts. If it weren't for Lydia Morgan, I closed my old account. I'm with Vanguard now. Finally, a bank that sees us. And while the news coverage was intense, Lydia avoided the spotlight. She declined major interviews. "This isn't about my face," she told Talia. "It's about what's behind the glass." Her focus stayed on the work. Quiet, methodical, transformative. Then the twist came. In the final audit stages of the Peachtree acquisition, Vanguard's forensic tech team discovered buried transaction trails linked to predatory lending schemes. The evidence was subtle. Interest spikes tied to zip codes, loan rejections clustered by race and surname, insurance penalties auto-applied to applicants without traditional employment titles. These weren't just careless mistakes. They were coded traps. Traps built to extract more from the most vulnerable. Lydia sat in her office. The report spread across the desk in front of her. Her fingers steepled in silence. "How deep does this go?" she asked. Talia looked up from her laptop. "It's not just this branch. It's across the Southeast network." Lydia exhaled slowly. "Send it." Within hours, Maya posted again, a 3-minute video titled Peachtree's Real Secret. Her voiceover was calm but blistering. While Lydia was being denied a withdrawal, thousands of customers were being denied financial fairness behind the scenes. "We now have proof." The post exploded. Federal agencies responded immediately. State regulators called for hearings. Bank CEOs met in emergency sessions. And as the pressure mounted, Lydia stayed focused, her message unchanged. "We don't want your apology. We want your system fixed." In less than a month, Vanguard Equity wasn't just a policy, it was a movement. Lydia had turned her humiliation into legislation, her public denial into a national awakening. She hadn't just bought a bank branch. She'd bought a mirror and held it up to an entire industry. And as the country looked into it, millions finally saw what was always there. The news vans eventually moved on, the cameras dimmed, and the internet found new names to trend, but inside the walls of the newly reformed branch, the legacy Lydia Morgan sparked didn't fade. It deepened. Margaret Wells. Once the voice of unchallenged authority behind the teller line, now found herself untouchable, not in prestige, but in exile. No reputable institution would return her calls. Her LinkedIn profile quietly disappeared. Claire Ramsey, discredited and disavowed by her peers, now held a customer service job in a payday loan office 3 cities away, answering phones for a company she once mocked, and Howard Vance, the man who had raised his voice the loudest when Lydia walked in, faded into the margins of private clubs that no longer welcomed him. His name whispered with embarrassment behind closed doors. The world hadn't canceled them. It had moved forward without them. The scandal hadn't just cost them jobs, it cost them their credibility. And in a world that now demanded accountability, that was the harshest price of all. But Lydia didn't watch their downfalls with pleasure. She didn't gloat when her name was cited in court decisions or regulatory meetings. She didn't smile when journalists called her a crusader or reformer. She simply kept moving. Forward. Not for revenge, but for restoration. At Vanguard, she launched new initiatives under the Equity First model, creating rotating panels of community advisors who helped review data ethics policies in real time. She hired local residents to help reshape the culture of each acquired branch. And when Talia suggested building a fellowship program for future equity advocates, Lydia funded it herself, anonymously. "We don't need statues," she said. "We need successors." Some stories, however, didn't end in punishment, but in unexpected growth. Ethan Brooks, once the smirking teller who froze her account, returned to the branch quietly under Vanguard's probationary program. Lydia assigned him a mentor, not from the executive suite, but from the community, an older woman named Mrs. Ellis, whose mortgage was once unjustly rejected by the same bank. Ethan listened. He took notes. He sat with the weight of his own silence from that day and asked the questions he should have asked then. "Why didn't I see it?" he once asked Lydia during a team review. She replied, "Because you didn't think you needed to." And slowly, Ethan began to change, not to erase the past, but to honor it. Months later, when Vanguard opened its second equity center in Detroit, Lydia quietly signed his name on the new trainer roster, Maya Jordan, whose instinct to record had helped shift the narrative, became something more than a witness. She became a voice. Her footage was now part of a traveling exhibit titled Truth in Plain Sight, chronicling stories of financial injustice across America. Schools invited her to speak. Civil rights groups awarded her recognition. And yet, in every interview, she said the same thing. "I just held up my phone. Lydia did the rest." But Lydia knew better. Without Maya, the world wouldn't have seen the story at all. So when the Vanguard Foundation launched its new scholarship fund, Lydia named it after Maya, not herself, the Jordan Fund for Civic Documentation, a nod to the woman who made the invisible visible. And then, months after the incident, one final twist unfolded. A letter arrived at the branch, handwritten. No return address. It was from Claire. Inside was a short note and a single phrase. "I was wrong." Attached was a video, shaky but sincere, where Claire apologized not for being caught, but for never asking herself why she'd acted the way she did. Maya posted it with a caption, "Change begins when we admit who we were." The video spread quietly, not virally, but deeply. Older viewers commented, younger viewers shared. Customers began to return, one by one, curious to see the bank that had changed not just its name, but its soul, and through it all. Lydia stayed centered. She never again raised her voice inside a branch. She didn't have to. The walls remembered her. The staff remembered her. And the systems that once failed her now carried her signature in their code. On the anniversary of the takeover, Vanguard unveiled a small plaque near the teller window. It read, "This counter once denied a woman her own money. Now, it stands for justice." Lydia visited it only once, late in the evening, when the lobby was empty and the lights were low. She stood in silence, not looking at the plaque, but at the people behind the desks, the ones she'd fought for, the ones still learning, the ones passing her legacy forward. And for those watching now, here's your moment. Where have you been denied fairness? When did you choose silence? And what will you do next? Lydia turned bias into justice from a single counter. You don't need power to speak. You need purpose. Your voice can change systems, so tell your story. Speak up. Act now. The mirror is still up. What will it show when you step in front of it?